To have you with us on the Buddy Martin Show. It's a Wednesday edition, a little bit of a change up in the lineup tonight. We will have Ali Peak Wilbur a little later in the show. Scott Carter will be kicking it off, and our fine writer from Gatorbait, Carlton Reese, will join us for a little discussion. It's going to be an interesting one because we're asking the question, is college football better or worse because of the transfer portal? I don't think we realize unintended consequence of the transfer portal. I'm reading things tonight. There's a cry for help by the athletic director of Alabama saying to those people, let's get some more money in here. Is that why we need more money to get more money to want more money, and where's escalation going to end? Well, that makes for an interesting sports talk. We'll do that tonight with our guests. Again, Scott Carter, Carlton Reese, and the ever-popular Ali Peak Wilbur. Stay tuned. It's coming up your way right now on this channel. Tell your friends and neighbors to come join us and give their comments online. We love hearing from you folks, and we love the fact that you follow us wherever we go, and we love having you on the program. So it's on now, and the Buddy Martin Show is on the air. Tell your friends and neighbors to come join us.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Well, now that the season is almost over, we ask the question, what are the unintended consequences of things like NIL deals and the transfer portal? A lot of things weighing heavy tonight on the hearts and minds of college football people. Chief among them might be the transfer portal because it's just open. There are people dancing back and forth and going to the other side and coming back. It's really hard to keep up. And I asked the question, why were we so naive about the unintended consequence of the transfer portal? Is it destroying college football or making it better? What do you hear what they say about this? I was really interested in Jake Slaughter's quote, the All-American center of Florida, talking about he had no idea the impact of his decision. And as someone said today on Twitter, or X, or what do you want to call it, you have to wonder about where this is all going and how is it going to wind up, and will it help or will it hurt? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to go right to our popular hotline to talk with one of our more popular guys. He's not normally on this hour, but he is tonight. We're glad to have Scott Carter. Hi, Scott.
Hey, good evening, buddy. How are you, bud?
Doing good. I'm just contemplating now. I'll get Scott back on it. Just contemplating, Scott, some of the things that have happened. Have you seen any comments today, like the AD at Byrne at Alabama, talking about the impact of what's going, begging his faithful to give more money? Alabama today got one of Florida's players. And it hurts to see Kelby Collins go, but it most of all hurts to see him going over there. On the other hand, he's an Alabama kid. But, this is how it's going to be. Like the old thing used to say, you can't tell the players without a program, and you can't tell them with a program these days. Scott, I don't know how it's going to wind up. I will say it's been interesting. I'm not sure if it's better or worse. I hope it's better. Go ahead, Scott.
You broke up on me a little bit at the end, buddy. So you were talking about the general game and whether it's better or worse now. That's what I got.
Okay, let me repeat it to see if I can. I seem to be getting you buffered a little bit here for some reason or the other. Just asking the questions. Folks, weigh in and tell me, are you having problems hearing me tonight? I don't think so. I've been testing this thing all day. I was just saying the questions about the game. Did you see Greg Burns' comment today, the athletic director at Alabama? He's called out schools for using promises of $1 million paydays to lure away our players. It's time for the Bama Nation to fight back. Like Alabama's not doing that. I mean, come on. Why does Greg Burns think it's just his school? Everybody's going through it. I guess Alabama's always been able to outbid everybody. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did see that, and it's the sport is obviously at a very interesting place. So we all know that it's been working now for since the summer of 2021 when NIL went into effect, and here we are 3.5 years later, and it's really at a more chaotic point than it's ever been. And there's been no answers, and there's been a lot of legal battles. Again, today you saw the NCAA lose another antitrust case against the Vanderbilt quarterback. And the way the ruling read is that the NCAA, let's say you go to a 2-year school and play 2 years of football. Well, the way the ruling read, interpreted, well, the kid can still play 4 years at a Division I school because they're separate. So that's just another page of chaos in all this. And specifically regarding the NIL transfer portal, paying players, what Byrne was alluding to. Yeah, you've got to eventually. I mean, I think what's happening here, buddy, is everyone is realizing how impossible this is, unsustainable. And it's been okay for the first couple of years because there's so little transparency in the whole process. No one really knows what's going on. No one knows how much a player is really getting. You can get a guy on campus and say, look, here's our deal. We're going to pay you $1 million for this year. We're going to give you a couple hundred up front. Then we're going to pay you over a few months. But how binding are those contracts? So if the guy is a bust during the season, and let's say December rolls around and you're rebuilding your roster and the coach says, you know what, we've wasted too much money on this guy already. Let's get rid of him. Well, is there anything that can stop them from doing that? Because how binding is that contract? And then on the other side, you have players who have accepted money. Some of them probably got paid a lot up front, and now they've gone to another school because of a coaching change or something. So it's just an impossible system to regulate at the current structure. It's really unfair, I think, to fans to ask them to pony up more than they already are. So the way, it's there's a lot of smart people on both sides here in college athletics and in the TV, the media runs college football now. The TV dollars, those are the decision makers that are in control right now. So until college leaders take some control back and say, we've got to do a better job, we've got to create a system that's more fair to the players, more fair to the coaches. I mean, you're seeing a lot of coaches getting out of this thing, buddy. The last one was the Wake Forest guy who, by all accounts, Dave Clawson's a fine coach, does it the right way. And if I'm in his shoes, I can't really blame the guy. Hey, I'm done. So it's a fascinating place, and but it's got to get better.
Yeah, Nick Saban said some interesting things this week, and he railed on about it. And it was sort of Armageddon-ish in his comments, and it tells you basically it's why Saban left the game. And I think there are no controls over this. What's scary is how much further will it go? And when you start looking at it and saying, okay, what do we have here? Kelby Collins went to Alabama. I heard the Alabama player was coming to Florida, but I haven't seen it. I mentioned that's not on Twitter. We don't know that until this whole thing is over. How much longer is the portal open? 2 or 3 days?
No, it runs through to December 28th.
That long?
It's from December 9th through the 28th is this period. And, it just creates a lot of uncertainty. Like you have
Okay, yeah, okay.
You have a lot of these players who are in the portal, and are they practicing with the team? Are they playing in the bowl game? It's just, and it just created. So I think one thing that, and I'll say this, and I've said it many times, I am all for the players getting a piece of the pie because there is so much money here. I'd much rather see some of that go to the players than just these ridiculous fat contracts to coaches and these bloated staffs and everything. So I think until the grown-ups really take control of this operation and say we're going to fix this, I mean, it's going to remain like this, but it's not in a good place. And again, I'm not one to like, oh man, I wish the old system was better. I'm not necessarily sure it was, buddy. I think the game is healthier than it's ever before. I can't wait for these college football playoffs to start. I'm genuinely excited about watching Indiana and Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, those campus games, and seeing these great players on this big stage. But I think there still needs to be some model that, and this is going to be hard in college athletics because, again, this football at the University of Florida means something a lot different to the football program at Oregon State or UCLA. It's just the way it's a regional sport. But I think the leaders, they just know that this model is unsustainable. Yeah. You're going to have to do something and get on the same page.
I don't know who makes that decision anymore, so I'm so confused by it. And
nobody knows anything. That's the problem.
I think I wanted this, and I campaigned for it for many years. I thought it'd be wonderful to have a playoff. I'm not even sure. I made a promise I wasn't going to criticize the playoff anymore until we see the first weekend of it, because we got to see how it works out. A lot of things I think are going to be wrong with it, but maybe not. Maybe it'll be right. It's like somebody said earlier here, it depends on how the cookie crumbles. If your team is doing well, you love the portal. You love, if you're getting a player. If your team is getting the playoffs, you love the new system, etc. If your team is not, one of those guys like Alabama or Ole Miss, it kind of sucks to you, So anyway, those are just flaws that have to be worked out.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing some new power players emerge with this model right now. I mean, you saw, like, for instance, SMU suddenly rebuilt their program. This is a model that SMU made successful in the 80s, buddy. It was called, paying players the Pony Express. It got them on the death penalty. Now it's legal. I saw they signed Josh Braun, the former Gators offensive lineman today, who went to Arkansas, got back in the portal. Now he's going to SMU, and I'm sure he's making some nice money, which is fine. Yeah. Again, I've got no problem with it. It's just that, the schools that have traditionally done it one way, and now, like Alabama, for instance, and I think Florida might be in that same, they have a different kind of, I guess, booster outlook than maybe these Texas schools. You've seen the Texas schools just load up in this new era, like Texas A&M, SMU, Baylor has gotten a couple of really big time players. There's just so much of that oil money out there, and it's like, hey, we're going to invest it into college football. We like this, and I don't know if that kind of that same money exists at certain other schools, So I don't know. I don't have certainly all the answers, and there's so much that is confusing because there's not any transparency. I just think that if you want to make your sport healthy long term, you're going to have to get some stabilization back, or you are going to lose a lot of your hardcore fans. And you'll gain some new ones too, but you'll lose a lot.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to bring Carlton Reese here to board in a minute, talk a little bit about the game at this point in time. What's interesting is how emotional some transfer portal players make the fans, and others say, he wasn't that big a deal. But for whatever reason, one in particular has certainly raised a lot of eyebrows. I'm talking about, and he's gone. He's not coming back. And there's some people, and Carlton Reese wrote a column about it, who really think that even though he wasn't rated as a top number 1 draft choice as an outside rusher. Jack Pyburn's heart and soul was so big a part of that defense when it turned around. They associated him with the turnaround, and they wonder what happened. He was Mr. Orange and Blue. He was our guy. He was Jacksonville. And I've since learned a couple of things, and you have 2 about that. One is I didn't know how involved his dad was in this process. Apparently, very much so. We haven't heard from Jack. It just seemed out of context that he, a guy who appeared to lead Orange and Blue, bled green, which is okay, don't get me wrong, but that particular one disturbed a lot of people, and Carlton wrote a nice piece about it, which will run tomorrow. There are some players that are more emotional than others, and I think it's what I call the plus-minus thing. When you leave, and this is one thing Carlton wrote about, if you go to USC or Penn State, or you go to one of those schools up in the Midwest, okay, fine. But if you go across the river to the arrival, it hurts. It's a minus for you and a plus for your rival, and those hurt more. Just like ETN, people say, "Well, didn't miss him." No, but it sure didn't look good to see him lining up in the backfield for Georgia either. And that's the part of the fans' emotions you got to take into consideration.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's natural for fans to feel that way. I get that. But the reason that we're conditioned that these situations haven't been common, remember, until the transfer portal era, most schools in the SEC, they prohibited, most coaches would not let a kid transfer unless he committed to a school outside the conference. That was common practice until the last few years. So you just didn't have these cases. So what this is more than anything, it's a shift in power. And again, like I said a moment ago, buddy, in speaking to the bigger picture, I'm okay with some of the shift in power because I think it needed to be balanced a little bit better.
Yeah,
I'm for some rules, but a guy like Jack Pyburn, yeah, it sucked to see Jack leave because I really liked what he had done in his career. He's a Florida guy. He's the kind of guy you want in your program. But then in the other side of it, I can see he's almost like the perfect candidate for a transfer portal. He got a chance at Florida. No one hardly really wanted him. He actually made something out of himself. And he's like, you know what? I've got 1 year of college football left. I love the Gators, and I hate to do this, but I want to go to them. How much will they give me? Well, I think I can get more out there. That's just what you call capitalism, right? That's the way America is built. Yeah. So I'm not ever going to criticize Jack Pyburn from that standpoint.
Okay, that's fair.
But it does stink to see him leave. It reminds me of a guy like, just imagine, buddy, 15 years ago, after the 2008 season, 16 years ago, Tim Tebow, he could have gone anywhere in the transfer portal area. I mean, he would have made more probably in the transfer portal than if he had signed in the NFL that year with the contract.
Yeah.
So, but I think he would have stayed. I mean, you would have liked to think he would have stayed at Florida, but I don't know. I mean, you just don't know. And but it is a gut punch when you see a guy like Jack Pyburn left, because guys like us you just know that a lot of these kids, man, they used to dream of playing at Florida or Florida State or Miami. They wouldn't have left those schools for anything. And now it's like everything's negotiable, right?
Correct. That's correct. We're going to bring Carlton in here, and I'm going to tell you folks, first of all, about our fine sponsors tonight. Meldon Law, you know about them, Jeffrey Meldon and his team. Meldon Law does so many good things for the Florida Gators and sponsorship of many things, including this program. They have a terrific Facebook page. If you want some goodies, let me give you a little tip. If you're looking for tickets, giveaways, trips, they got them. Go to the Facebook page and keep your eyes out. You'll score some good stuff. Jeffrey's always giving away good stuff. And meanwhile, if there's something you would like to know about law, I suggest you try them. I recently had a legal matter. They're rolling it for me right now. And I love the fact that I can get a hold of somebody in the office and they can give me, most of the time, a Meldon. That's the thing about it. So Meldon Law, they do a terrific job. They're the official injury law firm for the University of Florida. Check them out. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Let's go bring our friend Carlton Reese, very fine writer from Ocala, Florida. By the way, we had to be proud of our Ocala boy. Jake did a good job. How about him getting All-American first year? Evening to you, Carlton.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Hey,
Good. I know Carlton's got seething underneath, and I've read his first read on his column, which won't run until tomorrow. I get a chance to reread it. He's pretty steamed about this and going after this whole thing with Pyburn, as Scott and I were talking about. And Scott bounces us off a little bit here because he's right. They don't just bleed orange and blue; they bleed green when they're capitalists as well. But some hurt more than others. So let's say good evening to Carlton. Carlton, give us the essence of what you wrote, just as of your column will be on Gator Bait tomorrow, and tell us why you wrote it.
Well, that's if my column gets through the censors, buddy. It's pretty harsh, some of the language in there. It's good. It's fun reading for the whole family, though, I assure you. Kind of my take is, Scott mentioned, hey, it's capitalism, more power to them. I agree with that. It's real, but it comes with consequences, and those are, if a dad is raising his family and he goes off and he runs a company and he's never at home and never raises the kids, okay, he's gone and he's gotten his money, but you know what? He's abandoned his kids, and there are consequences for that. When a player in college does this, he's kind of abandoning the whole culture that is kind of helped build him in a way. He's provided for the University of Florida football program without a doubt. He should get his, but Florida had a lot to do with his maturation, his development. Now he has had his big year, and he's going to capitalize. It's like the contract year of a baseball player. Hey, I hit 320 last year. Now I'm a free agent. I'm going to score the big check. Then I'm going to cruise. That's kind of what it seems like to me in college football now. This guy had his one good year, and you know what? He's going to cash in. And to me, that says, was he really an orange and blue guy? No.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
It's going to be a much discussed topic, some more than others. I have mixed emotions about it as well. But like Scott said, remember now, Carlton, you may have heard about this. You're a little too young, maybe, although not that much younger. Scott.
Thank you, buddy.
In the days when Bear Bryant, you heard about it, he would sign 150 guys, and he
Oh, yeah.
knew at least 70 of them would never play. But he kept them away from Auburn and all the other SEC schools. That's not out in purgatory. That's the bad side of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that, hey, the old way was great and perfect. It had flaws. Scott mentioned, hey, these guys should get a piece of the pie. I think everyone agrees with that, but it seems like instead of saying, all right, it's name, image, and likeness. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean a guy has the right to profit off of when kids are wearing his jersey number around? I totally agree with that. But what they've done is they've taken it the next step and said, well, name, image, and likeness. This is kind of a ruse now for us to just start paying astronomical amounts and have bidding wars with players. That's not good for college football. These kids have got to be able to share in this money somehow. But this isn't the way. This isn't the way to do it.
No, it's
Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
no, just I wanted to circle back to Pyburn a little bit because I felt the same way you guys felt. Like when that came out, that one caught me off guard. I had not heard that internally. I was not expecting that, and it was very disappointing. So I totally get where fans who want to wash their hands of him are coming from. I mean, that hurt. But having said that, you've also, like the kid, what really bothers me about some of this, buddy, with the transfer portal area, like these kids, like Jack Pyburn, I mean, he was going to be welcomed back to Florida. He was going to be one of those guys you would see maybe around the swamp in coming years. But now you leave and go to LSU for just that 1 year. And regardless of whether he does much out there or not, these guys, they don't look at the big picture like that. He's not going to be looked at by Florida people or fans the same ever again, just like Trevor Etienne. You think Trevor Etienne is going to pop down for homecoming weekend at Florida one day? No. And I don't think they look at that stuff. They're young. Look, we were all 18 to 22. You don't look at the big picture like that. They're just chasing dollars. But I do think, like Carlton said, these decisions do come with consequences, and that's just one of them that they're going to deal with in the future that maybe they're not even thinking of now.
Let me move on here just to get to another topic, but I want to, before I ask the question of you guys, is college football better or worse because of what's happened with the transfer portal, or is it too early to tell? Scott?
If you've listened to me for 10 minutes here, you're probably automatically going to say, I think it's worse, right? But yeah, I think the game itself is better than it's ever been. Like I said, I'm really excited about watching these playoffs. I'm really excited about just seeing what the next month's going to be like. But so the game itself, the TV ratings, everything that the people who are at the top of the food chain in college football right now, and we're talking about the TV executives, the conference commissioners, the ADs, the game is okay in that regard. It's bringing in money. The business is good. But as far as for the fans and for people who really enjoy, getting to know these players and connecting with them from their alma mater, I mean, it's not in a good place in that regard. And I think it's so successful on the top end right now. I don't think those consequences have fell down yet to the fans. But again, I do think if it's not stabilized and some transparency comes back in, I think there will be a loss of fans eventually, but we're not there yet. So that's why I hope that they get some better systems in place.
Carlton?
Yeah, I'm the old guy yelling at the kids to get off his lawn. So maybe I'm not the right one to speak on this. I don't think it's in a good place. Is the product on the field? Is it good? Is it better than it was? Are the TV ratings great and all that? Honestly, I don't care about that. I care about the culture that surrounds the game. College football became immensely popular in this country over many years without NIL, without transfer portals, with a lot of flaws even. And now we're shifting gears way too fast. It's almost like in politics or in societies, what causes revolutions is when change happens too quickly. And I see that happening in college football. Someone needs to pull the reins on this thing. I don't know if it's going to be a conference commissioners getting together and coming up with something, but they've got to come up with something better than this. Scott said earlier, this is not a sustainable system. I completely agree. And how's it going to blow up? I don't know what that's going to look like. One of the things I said in my column, Buddy, is you're going to read down the road where, some kid he went after, he got all this NIL money and he didn't turn pro and he blew it all and he's destitute now. And you know who's going to get blamed? The institutions. It's that old saw again where the kid was used up and spit out, even though he got $45,000 a month. It was college's fault. They were using him for profit. That's the story we always used to read, and we're going to read about it again in 10 years. I guarantee you that's coming down the pike.
All right. Final thing, I was really taken by this quote. There was a couple of people online who talked about the fact that they should be making more out of the players being retained than the ones that they got in the transfer portal. That the good players coming back, the essentials of their team, are more valuable than anybody you could go out and get is on the portal. And I read this quote from Jake Slaughter, Ocala's own Jake Slaughter, All-American, which, by the way, he did not make as All-SEC. It's funny. The quote was, I didn't realize there was like a thing you do where you say if you're coming back or not. I was just going to show up in January. But yes, I'm coming back for my 5th year. So he didn't realize that. That's a huge get for the Gators, Scott.
It is. It is a huge get. And, Jake Slaughter, I think, represents a lot of what we've been talking about here that you want to see more of in college football. Guys who, sign with the school because they really wanted to go there. They kind of worked to develop and wait their time. He's done that. He's a first-team All-American, and he could have left, and he's going to stay. You know what? Jake Slaughter's he's got an NIL deal like every player on the team, and then maybe he has some other ones. I don't know what he makes, but he's like, you know what? I could go in the portal, and you can get some of that maybe quick cash because it's almost like fool's gold. This first wave of the transfer portal, they just seem to be at least promise some money. I don't know how much is exchanging hands right now, but Jake Slaughter says, you know what? I like where I am, and I'm going to come back, and this is where I want to be. So, yeah, I love that. I love what he stands for, and I just hope that there's more and more of those guys that kind of come back to college football instead of keep disappearing in front of us.
I love the story about him getting his own barbecue grill deal early on as a freshman. He was asked, "Can I get my own?" Yeah, you may. He wrote the barbecue company. They sent him a grill.
Right.
His own NIL deal. As a freshman, he was a businessman. So, all right, guys, we're going to go do a quick commercial for Titan MRI and Imaging. Changed their name and got added location. We come back, we're going to talk basketball. Because I'm telling you, last night, basketball game resonated with so many people. I was talking to David Whitley today, and he came on right at the beginning of the show last night. And we came on at the very moment they were tied 84-all. They'd been to that tremendous burst in the first half, up by 17. Now they were down to all tied with 2 minutes to go. Talk about nerve-wracking. I kept reading Patrick Young talk about how he could hardly watch it, But, boy, that was a huge one. And every program needs one of those, and now they're getting tournament tested. So stand by while I tell you about Titan MRI Imaging. They're now called Titan MRI and Imaging because they've been acquired. They've actually acquired High Field MRI. Joe Colorio started High Field MRI in 1997. Now he's back. Titan MRI and Imaging now has 3 locations to serve you, 2 in Gainesville and also 1 in Lake City, and soon coming to Marion County. Titan MRI and Imaging offers the same great customer service, accepts insurance now, and through their convenient self-pay option, you can also do it that way. Titan MRI and Imaging, MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds, easy scheduling with lots of options, including evenings. They have a large MRI machine for patients that need. So check them out. Titan MRI is your choice. Down Titan MRI Imaging. All right, guys, basketball. Wow. That was a heck of a basketball game last night. Yeah, I know Carolina didn't have a great record, but they had played a tough schedule. and honestly, I like what Coach said when he said he looked them in the eye. Todd did, and said he saw them at 2 minutes to go, and they weren't frightened at all. And they went back out and finished business. It's hard, Scott and Carlton, when you blow a lead to regain your composure, isn't it?
Yeah, full disclosure, buddy. I was paying attention to the game last night. My daughter was dancing in the Nutcracker. So I was looking at scores, and then by about the time Mother Ginger was revealing the contents of her dress, I looked at the thing, and it said North Carolina had pulled within 1. And I thought, well, this is over. They just blown a 17-point lead. Now they're up 1. They're going to lose this game. And so it was – Florida needed a game like that. They needed to be tested like that. And North Carolina is a good team. You mentioned their record. Every team they've lost to has been a great team, not just a ranked team. But,
4 really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, Florida wouldn't be undefeated right now if they had North Carolina scheduled. There's no question about it. So they're going through some hard knocks right now. But Florida needed a game like this. This is the kind of game that's going to serve them well. At the end of the year, it's kind of cliche to say it, but I'll say it anyway.
Scott,
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's I was kind of like Carlton there. I'm like, man, are they going to lose this after having that big lead and looking so good for so long? And I just really like the way the team responded, obviously. But what I like more about this team, and I've liked it from the start, is, man, this team, they're going to about out-rebound anybody. I just love how active they are on both ends. And when you get those loose balls at the end of the game like they did, that was the deciding factor down the stretch in the last minute and a half. They got a couple of those loose balls and got to the line and got a basket. And, that's what put them over the top. And, Todd Golden, he's got something working here. I mean, 11-0, 7th in the country. The SEC, as we know, it is going to be. It's not your big brother's SEC in basketball anymore, guys. As much as we've talked about how things have changed in college football, there certainly has been a shift in college basketball the last 3 or 4 years. The SEC, you could argue right now it's the strongest college basketball conference in the country.
Wow, think about it. Yeah, but my gosh, so they may have 12 teams in the tournament.
Yeah,
there's a new
You can go
rank.
500 in the SEC this year, and you're a top 20 team.
Wow,
yeah.
I just got this net ranking from out today, which is something I didn't know. Apparently, the selection committee puts it out and updates it on a daily basis. They just did the net ranking, and here's how the top 10 look. I'll start at number 10. Alabama 10, Marquette 9, Houston 8, Kentucky 7, Iowa State 6, Florida 5, Gonzaga 4, and Duke 3, Tennessee 2, and Auburn 1. Those Auburn and Tennessee games, Scott, are going to be something to watch.
Yeah, they're going to be some knockout punches thrown both ways. I think both of those teams are excellent. We all know Kentucky. I mean, what you just mentioned, I think 6 SEC teams you just read off, if I was counting, right? And Florida being number 5. I mean, I think this Gators team, of all those teams, maybe they were the ones that were under the radar just a little bit. But I don't think they're under the radar anymore. I think they got a great national stage last night in that Jumpman Classic, playing on national TV. Obviously against Carolina, one of the true blue bloods of the sport in Charlotte. I mean, there were some Gator fans there, but it was obviously a very heavy Tar Heel
2,500, supposedly 2,500 there, that they said.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a good turnout, but when you're playing in Charlotte, it's going to be a North Carolina crowd. I just thought it was a great response, and without question, like Carlton said, something that they will be able to kind of flash back to later in the year, because they're going to be in a lot of those close situations in the SEC this year, and they're not going to win them all, but I think they're going to win their fair share. And I think, this is a team that, at least right now, I can see, doing something in the tournament once it gets there.
They're talking about it being a Final Four team. We'll see if that turns out that way, but starting a learning curve there for them. By the way, Jason Bullock points out Josh Brown went to Kentucky, not to SMU. I did not remember that. So
I may have flubbed that one, I think.
All right.
Although SMU did get some. See, it's confusing. You can't keep
track. Too much. It's too much. I can't remember it all. Crazy. But I mean, the basketball team getting hot at the right time. Let's talk about the bowl game. I know it's just Tulane, but I'm kind of really psyched about that, because it's another step in the direction this program needs to go. And I don't think, although they have, somebody said they lost 4 of their 6 edge rushers. Is that right, Scott?
Well, let's see. Pyburn, obviously, Searcy's in the portal. I guess maybe they're counting, Justice Spoon. And then if they're counting Kelby Collins, although they had moved him inside. Yeah. So, yeah, it's 4 of 6. And, I guess maybe I'm just a little – I don't get wrapped up in who is going where right now, because we all know that there's going to be another round of this later. And I think one thing that it's obvious under Billy Napier that they're pretty methodical in their evaluation. And you're not going to be able to find diamonds in the rough every year that are going to do as well as Chim DK and Elijah Badger. But when you look at college football with all the movement, as of the last time I saw a number, I think there were over 2,500 players in the portal. I don't know where it is right now. There's plenty of players there, and there's good players. Now, there's only a few of those marquee names that get all the hype that are moving right now. So I think they'll be fine, but they have been slow to move to the portal, and they're going to have to fill those positions that you just mentioned. But I guarantee you there's some edge rushers who will be available that probably can – I don't know. I mean, when you look at the stats, it's not like Searcy or Pyburn were blowing the stat sheet away. I thought Justice Spoon, he was a non-factor almost this year, and Collins didn't play. So is any of that irreplaceable? There's one player on the roster who, if he entered the portal, I'd be like, okay, that sucks. And that's DJ. Everybody else, I'm not worrying about.
Is he number 2?
Yeah.
Yes, number 2 would be the one that would really worry me. Everybody else, I think you can get players out there to get that production back, but they have to go get them. So, and they haven't done much yet. So that's why there's such a angst right now.
Carlton, you're a baseball fan, and you're too young to remember when free agency first stepped in, but there was predictions that would be the gloom and doom at the end of baseball, the free agency deal. And then, in fact, it turned things around because you take a losing team has lost all these years. Suddenly, they can make it up with 2 or 3 players, get players. And I don't think we've reached that status at this point in college football. Some change is good. It's unsettling. It's confusing because there's so much to know, Carlton. And just knowing, my gosh, we used to know the names of the players and their height, weight, and whatever else. We don't even know what teams are in what conference anymore.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember I wasn't a Phillies fan, but I could tell you the entire lineup of the Philadelphia Phillies. I was a Cubs fan. I like the baseball analogy, buddy, because I think that what we're seeing is almost a farm system within college football developing for the major programs. I think where you go to look for your talent is in the Sun Belt. Guys like Montrell Johnson. These guys are probably not highly recruited, and they're going through and they're showing their value at that level, and they got a lot of stuff on tape, and then all of a sudden they have value, and they're not going to get that kind of NIL money at Georgia Southern. So that's where they're going to move on. So in terms of the baseball, it's like the old Kansas City A's used to be for the New York Yankees. They were just the farm system for them for years, even though they're playing. I kind of look at these mid-majors, they call them, the Conference USA, Sun Belt, Mid-American. There's talent there, and that talent is quite honestly now being groomed for the Power 5 schools.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so somewhere here I've lost her. You've got Allie. If we can get back to a point where we were. Hang on one second. She's going to join the conversation. Go ahead and make a comment, if you will. Let's get back to the football thing. How good is this football team now versus how well they were, and what do you think is this team going to be better that shows up in the bowl game, or about the same? First, Carlton, give me your thoughts.
I don't. Is this team going to be what they bring to Tampa? Is it going to be as good as the team that finished the season? If that's what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. They're going to be the same, or what's the deal?
Well, it'll be a little different because of the transfers, and it's just hard to say. But who knows what's in the hearts of these kids when they go to a bowl game? They're all told the bowl games don't mean anything. I think they do. I mean, as long as you're putting on the jersey and the pads and you're running on the field representing your school, it means something. But that's what they're told. So it's hard to predict just what direction it's heading in the bowl game.
Let's say good evening to Allie, Scott, and Carlton. Allie, good to see you again.
Good to see you guys.
We need your expertise here now. Come on, say that. We're just discussing, obviously, earlier in the program about whether or not football was better with the portal or worse. I don't think we know yet. Carlton's got a steaming column we have not released yet on Jack Pyburn. Waiting to put it on because it might shatter. It may cause an earthquake when I publish it. But anyway, the point is, you get a good touch on fans. Some transfers and some changes make them very angry. Jack Pyburn seems to have touched a nerve, Allie.
Yeah, I think that's because Gator fans viewed him as one of them, right? This is a guy that grew up cheering for Florida, bleeding orange and blue. That's what he told us, right? A guy from Jacksonville. And I think, Florida took a chance on him. This is a 3-star guy that they brought in and developed, right? And kind of helped him nurse through some injuries and different stuff going on. And I think that Florida fans kind of feel like he, used him and abused him a little bit. I will say from some of the things that I've heard, I do believe some of the demands. I don't know that I believe the entire laundry list that's been published, but I do believe that some of these demands were made. And, there's only so much money to go around. This is a guy who I think you never have to worry about being in trouble. He'll do the right things. I think he's a leader. And then I think he was a nice player, a good player. I don't think that he is, this just can't lose out on having this generational talent. Like, I think that there was several guys on defense that are better players than him, but I think he's a great addition to your defense, right? And he is the kind of player, the kind of kid you want to play for, that you want to coach, because he is going to do the right things. And all of those things are, Florida will miss them, but I don't know that I think he was negotiating from the position that he thought he was.
Carlton's man, he's putting up a bounty on him and say he can't come across the Florida State line again after he goes to Louisiana.
Well, listen, I don't get this whole transferring to a rival thing. I don't. And honestly, there's part of me that I know it's just the age that we're in, but I'm also like, damn, what are we not doing in Gainesville where these kids don't absolutely despise some of the teams on our roster? I cannot imagine anybody that played with Eric or anybody that played with my brother going to LSU or going to Georgia or going to Florida State. We've seen all three of those happen in the last, 12 months.
Put that picture up of your granddaddy up again on the corner. Hold it up again. Carlton, you know who that is, Carlton?
Oh, no. Who is that?
Do you know Scott?
It's my grandfather, Scotty Peak.
So I
knew it was a Peak, but I didn't know the first name.
Yeah. Well, they're all Scott, so it's pretty easy that way.
He was in the what years?
I believe 49 to 52, I think.
Yeah, he was part of the Golden Era group, by the way.
He was part of the Golden Era, yes.
Yeah.
But he did enroll, then leave and go to World War II, and then come back and actually play. Well, and he went initially on a track scholarship, but he played both sports.
Well, when you transfer to World War II, nobody gets mad and come back.
That's right.
Well, the Gator players did, and the Georgia players did not. That's why Georgia beat them 75-0. It's a mark of shame at Georgia, as far as I'm concerned.
That's a good story right there in that one. Allie, you might want to know about that. There's how they beat a bunch of 4F guys. But we got legacies, and we love the stories of the Suns coming back to play. What they're doing this year. Allie's, I think, a 5-time legacy. Are you, Allie? Tell them who all in your family has played for Florida.
So my grandfather played, my dad played, my brother played, my husband played. Got a cousin in Ocala who played football, another cousin in Ocala that swam. I have a first cousin out of Tallahassee that swam for Florida. Thinking that's it. But yeah, a lot of Florida athletes in the family.
A bunch of Gators right there, Carlton.
Yeah.
We're all nerds in my family.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little ball. I know this game doesn't mean much to many people. I think we feel like this game means something, Allie. And it's a statement game. And Florida's heavily favored, but no guarantees. And Scott, I believe they can still play if they're in the portal, as I recall, although I don't know how many of them will. All right, let's talk. How important
Tulane's quarterback that will be starting is their backup is in the transfer portal, but he's playing so he can get some game film.
There you go. Yes. Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. But I think I don't know that anybody is opting out as far as we've been told from Florida's end, which I feel like is pretty powerful statement for Billy Napier. We're talking about a pre-Christmas bowl game that on paper means very little, but I do feel like it means a lot to these players. I think finishing the season 8-5 is a big, I told you so, to everybody else. It's progress, and 8-5 is better progress than 7-5 is, right? I think it's an important win for Florida to get, and I don't usually feel like that with these early bowl games.
I think you could go around and do a litmus test and ask people if they ever thought Florida would be 8-5.
Yeah.
If they said they thought so after week 5 or 6, I call BS on that one, because let's face it, raise your hand if you thought Billy might be the wrong guy and that'll change. There you go. We all thought he was done.
We did say in July they'd be 8-5. We just didn't feel like that in October.
Cover. That's a backdoor cover. That's what I'm talking
that
about.
included wins over Miami and Texas A&M.
Oh.
Yeah, right. And I love people say, "Well, I said they were going to win 7 or 8." You didn't say it 4 weeks ago, pal. I'm sorry. But if we did, I did correct myself on that now, by the way. I got to give myself a little credit. Before Scott Strickland said, like I said, maybe they need to give another chance. I'm not saying I'm right very often. I haven't been right on this one because based on who you're going to get, who would you get? Lane Kiffin? I never thought Lane Kiffin was going to be a real fit here, and I didn't see it happening. Carlson, how did you feel about that?
Well, I was never saying to fire him, but I remember saying after the A&M game, I think I wrote for you, buddy, that I think he's a good coach, but he may not be the right coach here. And I always like to play out a season. I don't like firing someone mid-season unless they're a Willie Taggart or something like that. But I didn't think he was going to work out. I always thought there was a good team in there, but we weren't going to see it. And I didn't think Billy was going to bring it out, but they showed up. So that's it.
God, you're right in the middle of it, I know. And you saw a lot of things swirling. The wind's blowing both ways. And there's a story out tonight, however, Allie and Scott, I thought was quite interesting. And I may be complicit in this. And that's somebody wrote a piece about the fact, well, actually it was a social media castigating Scott Strickland for saying he was going to be able to use the money that he would have to pay for the buyout. They claimed they had the money. Allie, you know that. They claimed they had the money ready to buy him out. They say. But the fact is that I kind of made that up on my own. I didn't know. I said, if they wanted to, they could do this. This guy said it was never considered, and we immediately pulled the money out as soon as Scott made that move, and they only had $6 million of the money left to go. Allie, what have you heard about that?
So I've tried to do some fishing on that story today. I haven't come up with a whole lot of solid facts on it, but I'll tell you this. I know that in previous NIL dealings, so not this season, but last season, one of the things I was told is that when we want a specific player, that money is collected and put in escrow. And then if we don't get that player, that money goes back to the original donor. And that was part of the complaint about us moving so slow, was that it took a while to move this money around. And, our NIL structure had been redone since then, right? We now, have Florida Victorious. That was the Gator Collective, but that does kind of send antennas up to me because I had heard this kind of storyline before. And, I don't know. I can see a scenario where boosters are like, okay, I don't care how much we throw at this transfer portal. I don't think it's going to fix the coaching situation. So I'm not willing to waste that money and then be asked for more money a year later. I can understand the concept of somebody saying, I don't want to throw good money at bad. I just think makes it seem like this entire operation is just so clunky though. There's not can you not just convince your donors, hey, give me this money and trust me to do what's in Florida's best interest with it, whether that's a buyout or whether that's hitting it hard in the transfer portal. I don't know. And I also find it hard to believe that some of these players that we flipped coming out of high school, because that was part of the story, is that we'd blown a lot of our budget on these high school players at the last second. And they were all nice pickups, but I don't know that anybody was such a massive pickup that it should have drained the bank.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot we don't know. It's hard. Being a reporter is hard these days. Scott, you remember the days when you could actually call somebody and get an answer? It's hard today. You just don't know.
Yeah, I know what you guys are talking about. I saw it too. It was a message board post from what I saw. And the person who was obviously writing the message, he had some inside knowledge, he or she. It sounded like he was part of the contingent that, probably dropped some money in there. But that's, again, it goes back to my bigger picture. I can't wait for there to be more transparency through all this, more accountability on the university and the coaches side of the program, and more accountability on the agent player side, because there's so many bad actors. I had a guy call me a couple weeks ago out of the blue, trying to get a hold of one of the players. He was trying to get a deal with him. Dude, you're calling the wrong person. And but I mean, if I'm getting those calls, what are these kids getting? What are their parents getting? Yeah. So there's just a lot of bad actors out there. Again, I'll never be one to complain about the players getting some of it, because I do think they deserve it. But man, it's just all this unknown at this time of year. it just creates so much just BS is about the best way I can put it. So it's not good.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the game on. We got the playoffs this weekend. We all kind of focus on Tennessee, Ohio State because it's Big Ten SEC. It turns out the Big Ten got 4 teams in and not the SEC, which is kind of a surprise. I don't know. Is anybody? What are you seeing? Scott, I'll let you go first. Is there some team this weekend you think we've overlooked, or do you think it's going to be chalk? A lot of people are just saying Georgia's going to win it. Do you have any thoughts about what you're seeing now? First game is Friday night, by the way. After the Gasparilla Bowl, we'll get to see the Indiana Bowl, and then we'll get to see the other games this weekend. Any team or player that jumps out at you, Scott?
You know, just speaking of this first round, this almost pains me to say this, but I think people are sleeping on Tennessee a little bit. I can see them beating Ohio State. I really can. And I think if Tennessee gets hot at the right time, they have a defense, they have the running game, they can go a pretty good distance in this playoff. So to me, that's kind of my sleeper team right now in this thing. But just as I spoke earlier about, Buddy, I'm just genuinely excited about watching. Yeah. I'm going to watch Indiana Notre Dame on Friday night. There's no way in hell I'm watching that game in October, but I'm going to watch that game and be really excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Most expensive ticket in Indiana in a long time, I guarantee you that. Carlton, anything you looking forward to this weekend? I think Tennessee is kind of the darling because this is a 6 and 7 game, right? So obviously it's going. Yeah. So anything you see there that you're going to be watching closer that we've overlooked, or thoughts about a team other than Tennessee?
Well, the player I'm looking for is Nico. I want to see how he handles that in the playoff. I'm not a believer in that guy, but I believe in Tennessee's defense. The team that I'm looking at is Indiana, believe it or not. I have a feeling that they're going to go into South Bend and do something. They may pull off the upset. I'm more curious than anything. I saw them play this year. I thought they were pretty good. Not great, but I think they're good enough to beat Notre Dame if the stars align correctly.
Allie, this is kind of two for we'll wind up with this one about what we keep hearing about the defense now, who will take over for Ron Roberts. Will Ron Roberts be leaving? Is Charlie Strong's name coming up there? And the question from Toby Parmenter here, how do you think the defense will be in the bowl game with Ron Roberts calling the plays, Allie?
I think Ron Roberts been calling the plays since the bye week, so I think it's going to be pretty much exactly the same.
They sure have played well. Now the question is Ron Roberts going to be around?
Yeah, that'll be something to watch. You've got to think that's probably the obvious hire, right? I mean, unless there's some stuff that that we don't know or aren't aware of or whatever. But I would think he's the person that has made the difference between last season and this season, that he was kind of the catalyst for this turnaround. So I think it would make sense that he would potentially be just the lone DC, but we'll see.
Did he move to the press box? He moved to the press box, right? Did it make that much difference, Allie?
I mean, I think the bird's eye view is absolutely helpful. But again, I think he started calling plays. No one has told me that. So this is not like some sort of breaking news, but when Napier's been asked about it, he never gives a direct answer. He did over the summer. Over the summer, he said, Austin will call the plays. And there was a direct quote from that. But then when he was asked about it mid-season, he said something to the effect of like, oh, well, we got a whole team of guys that do things and blah, blah. Like it was just a lot of coach speak for not it's a name. Who calls the plays? And I mean, we have the same questions on offense too, and we get the same kind of runaround there. But if I was a betting person, I would bet Ron Roberts called the plays after the bye week, and that was some of the difference that we saw.
It's logical, Scott, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Allie's on to something there. I think it's. I mean, has anybody told me that he's calling every play? No. Is there some communication between every play where some guys can lend their voice? Yes. But yeah, Ron Roberts, it's his defense that we saw the last 8 games. And I think that's what turned it around. And, Austin Armstrong, I like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's going to be a fine coach one day. I just think he was put in a situation that was tough to handle and needed some help. And I think Robert solidified that side of the ball, as the season progressed.
I think Austin Armstrong's going to be a hell of a coach, but
really? Okay.
I just don't think I think he's so young. This is just that we are not an on-the-job training place. And when you have to bring in your mentor to literally coach the coach, you've turned it into an on-the-job training. And I just think maybe he wasn't quite ready for this role. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be a great DC or, down the line head coach.
Did he get a better deal when he left?
Yes, you're asking me?
Well,
I don't know what the deal he got was, but it's got to be better than being demoted.
He looked like he's the DC, and I don't know if that was a great job.
Well, he's the DC at Houston. I think it's certainly a better fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
As far as financially, I haven't seen the deal. I don't know if he's making as much as he made at Florida as original deal, but he's calling the plays again. So
and the pressure's not quite the same.
Let me get Allie to bed. She's got to get 2 sets of twins up tomorrow and do some things, and also. Scott's been doing a marathon tonight. Thank you, Scott, for doing that. And Carlton, good to have you on. Look forward to that column. You'll hear the rafters shaking tomorrow when I print it. And
don't use too much red ink when you edit it, please.
He's gonna come after you. He's speaking as a fan, which is interesting.
Absolutely, that's what it is.
Yeah, I love it. Great stuff from Carlton on Gator Bait, by the way. Check it out. Alec, thanks. So good to see you.
Welcome.
I hope to see you again. Or if I don't, we probably won't be talking about a show next week on the holidays. Have a very Merry Christmas, Allie, and to you and the family, and keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you. Merry Christmas, guys.
All right. Same to you guys. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Carlton.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you very much. We'll do this. We'll wrap it up and do our thank you to our sponsors tonight, particularly your WinStar Medical Research, who's been such a good friend of this program and been such a outstanding company in what they're doing. And we want to be sure and let you know that that they're looking out for your health and your town. If you're in Ocala, that's your hometown. And certainly, WinStar have been around for a while. I'm grateful to both Joe Sorrentino and his partner, Mary Brantley, for their support and all the things they do. And just so you know, they'd love for you to take part in some of their clinical trials, because clinical trials are how they get the data they're able to put out. And there, as we say, a superior is your QR code right there. And more information about how to get involved in some of those clinical trials. And while I'm at it, I want to mention Joe Sorrentino's son, Joey, former defensive back, now a full-grown adult dentist in Ocala, Marion Dental. They got a big one in Lenny Lake and one in Ocala. If you need a dentist, I encourage you to look them up, go see them. I'll be there. I was there, and I'll be back there again in a couple of weeks for Joey to do some work for me. Joey was a heck of a defensive back and returner, and he's also a heck of a dentist. So I want to thank that whole family and hope they're doing well. And thank you to WinStar for their support. On behalf of my sponsors and tonight's guests, good show with Scott Carter, Carlton and Reese. Don't forget to look for his column tomorrow on Jack Pyburn, and, of course, the great Allie Peak Wilbur. So you folks have a great night. We're back tomorrow night for the Orange and Blue Bloods. Ben Troop will be here with the team. Good night.